Today, most widely known market theory was developed based on the principles of the Scottish school led by Adam Smith, who, as Murray Rothbard wrote, in several aspects, developed economy from its third course, represented by the continental tradition commenced by medieval and the scholastics. This continental tradition was developed by a group of famous Thomist and Dominicans, Jesuits and Dominicans, many of whom were professors of moral and theology at the University of Salamanca. Friedrich Hayek wrote that the basic principles of market theory were established by the 16th century Spanish scholastics. In any case, due to the intellectual level and the reputation within the church, it can be said that this was the most thoughtful and valid attempt within the Catholic Church to study the market. Anyway, economy was not intended to be a science, but was derived from moral, the study of human behavior in the market, within the pre-existing natural order. But then rationalism, as to all other sciences, devoted the issue to a rational construction and granted economy the status of an autonomous science. For it was created by human reason independently from pre-existing order. Such independence implies two features. It does not occur spontaneously, since it does not respond to the nature of things and therefore must be coercively imposed, or at least a framework should be presently imposed, and ignores the real authority, which is moral authority, since it considers itself independent. Therefore, I will attempt to return to the origins, to the natural market. Here, the market of the natural order, but describing it, analyzing authority, and thus showing that the essence of the natural market is the opposite of a rational, constructed, and blend market empowered by a coercive authority. It is clear the nature of cosmos as an order that is spontaneously developed, inherently. As St. Thomas wrote, we can observe that in natural things, best things occurs, which should not be the case unless some sort of providence directed nature towards good as an end, which is to govern. According to Jacques Maritain, natural order means the existence of phenomenological laws that are invariably repeated generations. Scientific laws, thus invariably nothing else but extract, more or less directly, more or less fluently, the property or demand of a certain ontological indivisible unit, which constitutes what philosophers call nature or essence. Let us remark that natural events come spontaneously because they are intrinsic. They come from within of the person or the thing. By contrast, artificial objects, since they do not have intrinsic principles, need to be moved by an extrinsic force. St. Thomas Aquinas states that violence is directly opposed to the voluntary, as likewise to the natural, for the voluntary and the natural have in common that both arise from an intrinsic principle, whereas violence comes from an extrinsic principle. Therefore, violence is that which is directly opposed to the voluntary, which is natural, and to the natural, pretending to extrinsically deviate the development of things. Now let us point out that although human beings can voluntarily oppose the natural due to their free will, consider life arises from the nature that will be strongly impelled by the survival principle, commencing in the conscience to make their will coincide with the natural. Now, the set of rules that humans must follow to adjust themselves to the natural order and thus guarantee and promote life evolution is what we define as moral. They are those action guidelines according to the nature of things. Therefore, being moral implies that we harmonize our intrinsic principles, the voluntary and the natural. This harmonization is basic for life, for it involves the coincidence of our effective being with its nature. Hence, the survival principle will strongly induce us to ensure such harmonization. Thus, there is an ontological and natural, spontaneous, strong tendency of human beings to adjust to morals. It was probably Socrates who, for the first time, related God with some sort of internal presence or voice of the conscience. Such internal voice is the harmonization guide of the intrinsic principles. It is the self which demands us, use the principle of survival, to harmonize such principles and advises when such harmonization is not met. It is comparable to physical sensitivity that denounces when something physical is contrary to our material nature. If we burn ourselves, we will feel pain. Since to procreate, human beings need two people, man and woman, they necessarily need to interact for survival. Thus, social relations among people that are governed by the natural order have a nature that must be respected, and we will call this the social natural order. In this way, although human beings are not perfect, since they need the improvement of society and since they have been created to endure, they shall have a clear tendency towards cooperation and service for social life, which will be the natural, the normal way in the relationships among people. As we said, human voluntarily may destroy the natural or not. If it does not destroy it, it will continue towards good. If the voluntary destroys the natural, it will cause the disappearance of the voluntary which exists in its nature. This being so, the first corollary is that as long as the person acts voluntarily good, the natural order shall finally prevail. And the opposite, as violence, coercion is contrary to the voluntary and to the natural, it would necessarily destroy the nature. So, the second corollary is that human beings can never defend themselves with violence, since this would mean, on the contrary, the deepening the violation of natural order. The only way of real and efficient defense is to get the voluntary of the aggressor, match with his nature. Every human action is aimed at improving the situation of the acting individual. Some work to earn money, others do physical exercise to improve their health, and so on. Now, to improve means to acquire something better, ideological or material that the individual did not have before, meaning that some sort of superior authority will provide means which are unknown to the individual that will lead him to a better situation. Let us remember that the universe is ultimately governed by immaterial forces, and that morals is the adjustment to the natural order, and this has to do with efficiency, and that we all want to reach perfection, the ultimate purpose, which is the proposal of the providence. So we will keenly follow the one who best leads us toward, and in the natural order, the person with more moral authority. On the contrary, those who do not follow the real authority will move away from the natural order, and consequently they will disappear, and with them, spontaneously, naturally, the lack of respect for true authority. In the opposite, violent, coercive authority is unreal, since it does not happen naturally, and therefore it must be coerced, and destroys the real government of the natural market, introducing disorder. Now, social nature order involves actions and relations aimed to exchange goods and services so as to satisfy human needs more efficiently, as long as there is no violence or coercion. So we shall call this aspect of the social natural order, plainly the natural order, the natural market, or just the market. Israel Kisner states that the theory is based on the fundamental intuition that the market phenomena can be understood as systematic relations, The observable phenomenon of the market is not considered to be a mass of isolated and unsurmountable occurrences, but the result of several processes that may be tentatively captured and understood. Furthermore, Kirchner discovers that the market is not a static, balanced situation, but a creative process. The market process can be analyzed by the supply and demand curve. A balance thus is created between supply and demand, but the truth is that the balance is never reached, so what really exists is a punctual environment with a tendency towards equilibrium. In this natural market process, unlike what the rationalism states, the fact that the future cannot be anticipated is what triggers progress. For business functions, technological development, and finally the process of creation, that is what the natural order is about, are based on the chance to find unknown information. If the unknown did not exist, if we could rationally plan and anticipate everything, there could not be technological development, business function, or any progress whatsoever. Obviously, coercively imposed economic policies or planning or frameworks are counterproductive. Kirchner explains that the key feature of the market process refers to the role played by ignorance and discovery. In it, imbalance consists in ignorance. We describe this sequence of discoveries as a key element of a balancing process. Human beings are driven to discover what is best for them. The market process is focused on the incentives provided by the imbalance conditions for those discoveries that are added to the systematic balancing tendencies. In this way, justice arises from the creative act, contributing with something new out of nothing, profiting its creator and the fellow humans, and not from the coercive distribution of what already exists. So, strictly speaking, only God can create something from nothing. So, hence human beings can only participate in this creation, discovering facts that did not even know that they existed before. And to end the speech, let me summarize that modern economics has coercively imposed its rational idea, introducing econometrics and making it independent from moral, and somehow considers the market a struggle between individuals for the distribution of what it is, and some extent beforehand given and unknown, when the natural market is the certainty of the existence of an order anterior to human reason, which is spontaneous and extremely creative, that leads towards good and consequently to the coordination with the rest of society, leaded by a real authority in order to advance towards the growth of life. Thank you.